want all you people to understand this right here, man. For generations, our public has been controlled through fear. The progression of the perceived enemies have evolved over time. We were once told that our enemies were nations and states. And we had to duck and cover because the enemy could strike with great devastation at a moment's notice. Now, while this outside threat is used to install fear and bolster the military industrial complex was very effective. And this enemy can only last for so long. It was merely a scapegoat. The fear of the outside threat later evolved into terrorists who had no borders. This justified military expansionism globally, my people. While these military campaigns were often celebrated with the removal of terrorist leaders, the wars continue as the threat of the terror only escalated and the terrorist leaders were quickly replaced by new villains. We were told they hate us because we are free and gradually became less free as the government to record a police state and the surveillance need to protect us from the very terror that they created, my people. This is your government.
Within weeks of 9/11, the Patriot Act was passed in the US with no congressional debate. It allowed unprecedented surveillance with minimal oversight over American citizens. The alternative the government suggested was responsibility for another terrorist attack.
Terror, terrorist, terrorism, terror, 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 terrorist, terrorist, terrorists, terror organization, terrorist attacks, terror, terrorism, terrorist network, terrorist attacks, terrorist group, terrorists. Terrorist, terror, terror, terrorist, terrorist, terrorists, instruments of terror, a terror network, terror cells, terrorists, terrorizing terror and murder, terrorism, terrorists, terrorists, a tool of terror and torture.
Now we are told the enemy is invisible, yet everywhere. We are told our way of life will never be the same, much like we heard the aftermath of 9/11. And boy, were they right. The public has been conditioned to live in a state of fear. We have been conditioned to rely on the government as our only solution for safety and security, a solution we've been warned of for hundreds of years. Those who would give up a central liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserves neither liberty nor safety. That was quoted by your boy Benjamin Franklin. It's been said that you cannot invade manland, United States. There will be a rifle behind every blade of grass. So the question becomes, how did you take over a single country without a fucking shot fired? I want you people to hear what I'm about to say. Step 1, declare an emergency. Step 2, rule out weaponized propaganda. Step 3, enforce a nationwide lockdown. Step 4, make the public so desperate they will beg for a state-sponsored solution. Step 5, COVID-19 84. All to justify the freedoms is a casualty of war. So what's the next shoe to drop and where do we go from here? Now, I've been saying for a few months now that we are due for a false flag. And response has been that either people agree or people are accusing me of being some type of fearmonger, making fake accusations such as that I'm profiting from this crisis. People say that we are already in a false flag right now. We are experiencing a false flag right now. Now, that may be true. We must recognize that the stage is set, my people. And the need for another event may be presenting itself as more and more people grow tired of the lockdown, as more and more people begin to resist. Now, I'm just saying, my people, it may be time for the people to be reminded just how much they need the government to protect them in this global crisis, right? The people may need to be reminded how much they need to obey, how they need to stay in line, stay in this lockdown, and get back inside. The mainstream media has been quietly injecting the train of thought into the discussion about seeing that terrorists and or neo-Nazis could use this crisis as an opportunity to carry out an attack. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen 100%, my people, but based on history, it is a real possibility, and 9/11 is a perfect example. While the rumble of the Twin Towers was still smoldering, they were actively trying to rush the Patriot Act through Congress. They were met with resistance. How did they respond to the resistance? With an anthrax attack, a bio-warfare attack, and they didn't even have to kill thousands of people. Fear alone was enough to sell it, my people. So here we are now, and people are beginning to resist. And the media has injected the idea that a terrorist could launch a bio attack during this crisis. And now Bill Gates has came out and said the same exact thing. He said, right now we are at phase 1, and phase 2 is a terrorist attack.
Well, Bill, since you tried to warn us about this pandemic and we didn't listen, what's the next thing you're warning us about that's going to happen 5 years from now that we're not listening to at the present?
Well, I didn't want to be right. What I wanted to do was
I understand. I'm not saying you won. Everybody loses. Nobody wins with this, and I'm not saying that you're. This is not an end zone dance. I'm just saying, what else are we not listening to that we need to take action on now?
Well, the idea of a bioterrorist attack is kind of the nightmare scenario, because they're a pathogen with a high death rate would be picked. Now, the good news is, I'm not trying to depress you, it's tough enough right now.
Too late.
Most of the work we're going to do to be ready for pandemic 2, I call this pandemic 1, most of the work we'll do to be ready for that are also the things we need to do to minimize the threat of bioterrorism.
Now, I want you people to understand this right here. I've never been the type to tell people what to think, and I damn sure ain't about to start now. But I wouldn't be surprised if alarm bells are going off in your head right now. And one day I wouldn't be surprised if I have to refer back to this video and others that I have recently done where these concerns were raised. Now, why is this important? For the same reason that it's important to note that Bill Gates, the Johns Hopkins Center, the United Nations, both of which Gates sponsors extensively, ran a pandemic exercise on the same exact day that the World Military Games were holding their opening ceremonies in Wuhan, China, ground zero, simulating a global coronavirus pandemic. This is important for the same reason that it's important that Bill Gates, which some would say prophesized and warned of the exact same scenario taking place of a global health pandemic during a TED Talks back in 2015. This is important for the same reason that it's important that Dr. Tony Fauci, who sits on the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation Special Leadership Council for their decades of vaccination, stated that Trump administration would be hit with a surprise outbreak, and this was back in 2017.
Given, as you heard from the introduction, that I have been around for a while and have had the opportunity and the privilege and the pleasure of serving in 5 administrations, I thought I would bring that perspective to the topic today, is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that. But also there will be a surprise outbreak. There will be a surprise outbreak. There will be a surprise outbreak. And I hope by the end of my relatively short presentation, you will understand why history, the history of the last 32 years that I've been the director of NIAID, will tell the next administration that there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they will be faced with the challenges that their predecessors were faced with.
Now, my people, if you want, you can say that all of these events were just several different coincidences, which just so happened to involve the same groups of people over and over and over and over in the same exact scenarios, which we are currently living out right now. Or you can say that the writing has been on the wall for some time. So what is the end game here? Well, in my honest opinion, it's global governance delivered through a technocracy, which is a scientific dictatorship run by an unelected elite, which are ready to roll out a new digital system control, which will be ran on 5G artificial intelligence, biometrics through the blockchain technology that I've spoken about in previous videos. Your entire existence would be tracked, traced, monitored, surveillance, and regulated, intact into submission. So how do we stop it? Well, that's the billion-dollar question. But if we do nothing, they win. Okay, so we must resist. Now, if you are presented with a situation that you are not okay with or comfortable with, resist that shit, my people. It's plain and simple. Resist it. Be as independent from the system as possible. They've been trying to foster dependence upon this fucking system for generations, trying to make it a easy roll out. And once you are dependent upon the system, it fucking owns you. Now they are already talking about coming to people's homes and taking family members away. Are you people okay with this shit? This coronavirus crisis not only falls directly with the United Nations 2030 agenda, it has accelerated it. That we are witnessing a pre-packaged global transformation taking place right now. It's up to you. Hell, it's up to all of us. The time is right now. Where's your morals in the sand? Because the level of tyranny you will live under is the exact amount you will put up with. Shalawah, shalawah, shalom, my people. Be blessed.
Like a diamond in the sky, you know. Look at the lobby, I get the party jumping, lovers are falling, something, someone lit with a 40 grip, rocking, and we gon' roll from the floor to the top. No, stop until it's sunny, pass the Dasani bottle, fill up with the cardio, fill 'em with the cardio, up like a bald eagle. I'm on, oh, I'm on, like a diamond in the sky, you know more. I've been looking for somebody just like you.